All right, today we are talking landscape materials. I want to make the most basic form of a landscape material just to get you set up and on the path of making your own custom landscape material. There's probably some free ones you can just download off of the Fab store, to be honest, but it's good to know how this works and have a foundation to build off of. So we're in our blank project. Let's get that content drawer open. Ignore some of the other stuff I have in here. We're just going to make a new material. We'll actually put it in a folder. So let's just call this landscape material. Obviously, you don't have to do that if you don't want. We can right click in here and we are going to go to materials, material. And we're just going to call this my landscape material. I'm gonna double click that, open it up, dock it up here. And now we are in the material editor, and now we can build the landscape material. So now the first thing we need to do is obviously get a material that we can drag in here. So you could obviously get this off the internet, as long as it's copyright free and it's free to use, or we can go up to our window and go to Fab. Open up the Fab store here. It might pop up like kind of in the middle of the page somewhere. I usually just drag it up here, full screen it. So now let's just search for a typical landscape material. We might want grass. If you come over to price and go to free, make sure you check that just for this example. I'm probably going to use the Quixel assets today because I've already claimed the library. But if you have not, I'm sure you can find some free ones too. You just have to look around. But let's just go ahead and grab this uncut grass, medium quality, add to project, downloading, importing. There it is. Like, that's super fast. I love that. Okay, so we got some grass. Maybe we could find some, let's just go to the Quixel page real quick. I'm just going to search for sand. So here's a sand texture. We go here, medium, add to project. Love how fast that is. So we have grass, we have sand. What else could we get? We could get some rocks. So let's just type in rock. Jagged rock, sure. Add to project. All right, so now we've sourced our 3 different materials for the example. I'm gonna go ahead and close out of that, get back into our material editor. Now, we need to drag those in. Now, obviously this comes with multiple different textures that can make the material look a lot nicer. But for this example, I'm just going to make a super basic, like your first landscape material. So let's just drag in our main texture. There's our grass. So now what we can also do is come out of the UV and let's type texture coordinate. It's right here. I'm going to put one of those in there because then we can actually use this to change the size and the tiling of the material itself once it's actually on the landscape. So that's going to be super important to have. So now we're going to right click in the empty space here and type layer blend. And you'll see landscape layer blend. And now we need to set up the layer blend over here on the left. You can see it says layers and there's currently 0. Let's add one, open it up, and we can call this grass. And then everything else will stay the same. Let's go ahead and add another one. We're gonna call this one sand. And we'll add our final one. You guessed it, call it rock. And now we have our 3 layers right here in our layer blend. Now we just grab our RGB and plug it into the grass. And then out of the layer blend, you're gonna come into the base color. And now we just need to add our other materials and plug them in and we'll be good. Our rock texture and our sand texture. Let's put them in order. So plug that in. And then our texture coordinate, you could use the same one for all of these if you want. But let's go ahead and make a separate one for each so we can further customize the look. Just plug these in. And that's literally it, guys. Right there is your most basic landscape material setup that I can think of. Obviously, this isn't going to do crazy fancy things, but this is going to allow you to paint different textures onto the landscape. And I mean, that'll definitely get you started. Now, something you might also want to go ahead and do just for realism, technically, unless it's raining, the landscape should not be shiny or anything like that. So our specular, let's just go ahead and set that to a 0. And then the roughness, I'm going to make 1. And that should just help kind of mitigate the shininess of the texture so that it doesn't look fake and plastic-like. So let's go ahead and apply, save. Now let's go back into our level, and we need to generate a terrain. So let's come up to the selection mode, and let's switch it to landscape. And now here's our basic landscape. It automatically generates the grid here for us. Now you can make this as big as you want, remove sections, whatever you want to do. That's all controlled right here. But we can actually go ahead and select our material right here. So let's search for it. My landscape material. So we've already got that plugged up automatically now, but you could add it afterwards as well if you wanted to. So let's just go ahead and create this. And now when you first load it up, there's going to be no textures on it at all because we haven't set up our layers yet. So let's go over to the Paint tab. And now you'll see our 3 different layers here. But what we need to do is actually hit this little plus sign on each one. And we have to create the layer information. We're going to do weighted blend. So click that. And then you can save this wherever you want and name it whatever you want. It's usually just called like grass layer info. Just go ahead and save it. Now let's make sure we do that for each layer. So for the sand, same thing. And the rock. So now we have our 3 layer informations set up. And you can see right here, we can select whichever texture we want. By default, it has been turned into grass, as we can see. Let's get a little closer here. So as you can see now, we have grass, the most basic form, flat version of grass, kind of like an old 2000s game. I mean, this is all it would have been. Now, obviously, you can add new layers if you want and build upon this to give it that 3D look that more modern games use. But if you're just making a simple project, this is a great starting point. So obviously, if we zoom out, the grass texture just looks kind of like a green collar because the scaling is so small. So this really just depends on the size of your player. I would say we could probably get away with making the grass a little bigger just to kind of get rid of some of this repetitiveness. So we can use that texture coordinate that I mentioned before here. And here where the tiling is, let's make it 0.5 by 0.5. You generally want it to be the same number so that it's even. And so now you can see our texture is a lot bigger. So I think that looks a little bit better for now. But we can, if we want, let's say we want to paint some sand, we can adjust our brush size here. And then we've selected the sand layer just by clicking it. And it'll take a second to load at first, but then it'll pop in and you'll see your work being done. And obviously you can change all the different brush settings like just any other painting application. We could also make some rock. It'll pop in there for a minute and then load in. And now we have a rock texture. Now the thing to note, some textures are definitely more repetitive. Like this one, you can tell the square grids are a lot easier to see repeating on this rock texture. And sometimes you need a more seamless material to work for what you want. If you do feel like it's repeating too much, we can kind of mitigate that by making it bigger as well. So let's actually play around here for a second and actually see what we can do with this to make it look a little better. So obviously if I was painting rock, I would prefer to use that on the side of a mountain cliff. So let's actually come over to the sculpt tab and let's go ahead and make us a little mountain here. Okay, I'm gonna use the flatten tool. I'm actually gonna bring this through here. Flatten that out a little bit. Kind of give us a steep cliff over there. Then let's smooth this out a bit. Give it a little bit more of a fall off. Now, actually what I wanna do here is, let's say if this was like an island, I'm gonna actually go ahead and brush everything around this to be sand. So now you can imagine this is an island and there could be water over top of this sand. And right here you would have a little beach going down into the water. We actually don't have to imagine that. Let me give you a better visual example. So there I've just added a plane with a blue material on it. And then we can just kind of move it down Now, obviously we have our sand here for like underneath the ocean, and we'll just bring that up just a little bit to where it keeps our beach here. And now you can see it actually, you know, it's an island in a rough form. So you actually have your little beach here out with the water. Let's go ahead and remove all of that and just make that grass. Some of the layers are overlapping both. So you see you got a little bit of green like right in here still. So you can kind of play around with the blend. It doesn't have to be one or the other. They can kind of blend together as well. And now we want to add some rock to the cliffside. A little something like this. Now you can see that kind of looks terrible the way it is. I mean, look at that. What I would do is definitely for a cliff, just make the texture scaling a lot bigger. So there I've played around with it a bit more. I've set it to 0.05 and 0.03. And you can see from this distance, that looks okay for a cliff. That's not bad at all. As you obviously would walk closer to the cliff, it starts to look a little different. But honestly, for a cliffside, it's not terrible, especially if you was using actual rock assets here. Like I said, there's a lot more you could play around with. But now, especially the cool thing is if you're looking from all the way back here, like you're coming around and you see a cliff, that's pretty accurate to what it would look like. So yeah, that pretty much wraps this up, guys. This is the most basic form of a landscape material. It really only takes a few minutes to get this put together, find your materials, and start making your landscape. So this is great just for getting everything put together, and then later on you can improve and make it more advanced if you want. But just for general level design, I mean, this is a great starting point to just start mapping stuff out, and it's super quick and easy. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any recommendations on tutorials you want to see in the future, just comment down below and let me know. Be sure to subscribe if you're interested in learning more about Unreal Engine and leveling up your skills. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.